Ambassador Zethkar clicked his mandibles in disgust as he watched the human delegation unload their cargo bay. Mountains of twisted metal, broken electronics, and what appeared to be decomposing organic matter spilled onto the pristine floors of the Galactic Trade Station Omega-7. The stench was overwhelming, even through his environmental suit's filters. "This is what they call a trade offering?" Zethkar muttered to his aide, a nervous klaxon named Pip, who was frantically taking notes on his datapad. "We invite them to join the most prestigious trading consortium in 3 galaxies, and they bring us garbage?" The human ambassador, a weathered woman named Captain Sarah Chen, stood proudly beside the refuse pile, her dirty coveralls a stark contrast to the pristine robes worn by the other alien dignitaries. Behind her, a small team of humans sorted through the waste with practiced efficiency, occasionally holding up particularly interesting pieces for examination. "Honored delegates," Captain Chen began, her voice carrying across the massive cargo bay. "We present Earth's most abundant resource. What you see before you represents just a tiny fraction of what our planet produces daily. We have quadrillions of tons available for immediate trade." The gathered aliens erupted in a cacophony of horrified sounds. The crystalline Vexani chimed in harmonic discord, their translucent bodies flickering with embarrassed light patterns. The gas-form ethereals condensed into tight, offended clouds. Even the usually stoic rock people of Granite Prime shifted uncomfortably, their boulder-like forms grinding against the station's floor. "Surely this is some kind of mistake," wheezed Ambassador Gorth of the hegemony, his 6 eyes blinking in rapid succession. "The humans cannot seriously be offering waste products as a trade commodity?" Captain Chen's expression remained unchanged. "We understand this might seem unconventional, but we assure you that what we're offering has tremendous potential. Our scientists have been studying ways to—" "Enough!" Zethkar's voice boomed across the bay, his translator struggling to convey the full disgust in his tone. "This is an insult to the entire Galactic Trade Consortium. You primitive beings clearly don't understand the basic principles of interstellar commerce. We deal in refined materials, advanced technologies, exotic matter, and rare elements. Not this!" He gestured wildly at the pile of refuse, accidentally knocking over a small container that spilled its contents of food scraps and plastic fragments across the floor. Several delegates stepped back in horror, as if the waste might somehow contaminate them through proximity alone. "Remove this offensive display immediately," commanded High Trader Velnix of the auction houses, her serpentine form coiled in apparent revulsion. "The humans have clearly misunderstood the nature of this gathering. Perhaps they should return when they have something of actual value to contribute to civilized society." Captain Chen exchanged glances with her team, and Dr. Marcus Webb, the expedition's chief scientist, stepped forward. His calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the chaos erupting around them. "Respected delegates," Dr. Webb said, adjusting his thick glasses, "I understand your reaction, but we ask that you consider the broader implications of what we're presenting. This waste represents untapped potential energy, raw materials for molecular reconstruction, and organic compounds that could—" "Silence!" roared Chancellor Thex of the military caste, his massive frame towering over the human delegation. "You dare waste our time with such nonsense? Do you think we are fools? We have conquered star systems, mastered faster-than-light travel, and created technologies beyond your primitive comprehension. And you bring us trash!" The laughter started small, with a few chittering sounds from the insectoid delegates, but it quickly spread throughout the assembly. Soon, the entire cargo bay echoed with the mocking sounds of dozens of species, each expressing their amusement in their own unique way. The crystalline beings rang like broken bells, the energy beings crackled with sardonic electricity, and the mechanical species emitted harsh, grinding sounds that passed for laughter among their kind. Captain Chen stood firm amid the ridicule, her jaw set in determination. Behind her, her team continued their work, seemingly unperturbed by the hostile reaction. They measured, cataloged, and sorted the materials with scientific precision, occasionally making notes that they shared among themselves in hushed tones. "Look at them," cried Ambassador Skex of the corporate syndicate, his holographic form flickering with simulated mirth. "They actually think their planet's garbage has value. What's next? Will they try to sell us their bodily waste as a delicacy?" The laughter grew even louder, and several delegates began recording the scene for what they clearly intended to be entertainment back on their homeworlds. The humans had become the joke of the Galactic Trade Consortium before their first day was even finished. "Perhaps," suggested Trade Minister Quantillis, wiping tears of laughter from her compound eyes, "we should establish a special category of membership for species that don't yet understand the basics of value. A developmental tier for the truly backward civilizations." "Excellent idea," agreed several other delegates simultaneously, their voices creating a harsh chorus of mockery. Captain Chen finally raised her hand for silence, though the gesture was largely ignored. She waited patiently until the laughter began to die down naturally, then spoke in a clear, steady voice. "We appreciate your feedback," she said, choosing her words carefully. "However, we maintain our position that what we've brought represents significant value. We respectfully request a standard evaluation period to demonstrate the potential applications of our materials." This statement triggered another wave of laughter, even more intense than the first. "An evaluation period," gasped Ambassador Gorth, his massive bulk shaking with mirth. "They want us to waste precious time studying their refuse. Oh, this is rich. Wait until the High Council hears about this." Zethkar composed himself enough to respond officially. "Very well, humans. You are technically entitled to a 14-day evaluation period under consortium regulations. But understand this. When your materials prove worthless, as we all know they will, Earth's application for membership will be permanently rejected. You will be barred from all consortium territories and trade routes. Is this truly the path you wish to take?" Captain Chen nodded without hesitation. "We accept those terms." "So be it," Zethkar declared, his mandibles clicking with finality. "You have 14 days to convince us that your garbage has value. I suggest you use that time to prepare your departure, because that's exactly what you'll be doing when this farce ends." As the alien delegates filed out of the cargo bay, their mocking laughter echoing through the corridors, the human team was left alone with their pile of refuse. For a long moment they stood in silence, absorbing the weight of what had just transpired. "Well," said Dr. Webb, finally breaking the silence, "that went better than expected." Captain Chen raised an eyebrow. "Better than expected? Marcus, they literally laughed us out of the room." "Exactly," Dr. Webb replied, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Which means they're not taking us seriously. They won't be watching too closely, won't be trying to interfere with our work. They've already decided we're harmless failures." "And that's good because—" Dr. Webb gestured to the pile of waste, his eyes gleaming with an intensity that his colleagues had learned to recognize and respect. "Because it gives us the freedom to show them just how wrong they are. Sarah, we're not just going to prove that our refuse has value. We're going to build something that will change their entire understanding of what's possible." The rest of the team gathered around as Dr. Webb began outlining his plan. As he spoke, pointing to different components in the waste pile and explaining their potential applications, the expressions on their faces shifted from dejection to amazement to fierce determination. Outside the cargo bay, the alien delegates continued their celebration, sharing stories and jokes about the foolish humans who thought garbage could be valuable. They scheduled betting pools on how quickly the humans would give up, planned entertainment events around the eventual humiliation, and began composing the reports they would send back to their respective governments about Earth's spectacular failure. None of them paid any attention to the subtle vibrations that had begun emanating from the human cargo bay, or the unusual energy readings that their scanners dismissed as equipment malfunctions. They were too busy laughing to notice that the humans had already begun working, and that something extraordinary was about to unfold in the dark corners of the space station where refuse was sorted and dreams were born. 3 days into the evaluation period, Security Chief Vaxual of the trade station noticed something unusual during his routine patrol. The human cargo bay, which should have been quiet except for the occasional sound of defeated packing, was humming with activity. Strange lights flickered through the translucent walls, and his sensors detected energy patterns unlike anything in the station's database. Probably just their primitive equipment malfunctioning, he muttered to himself, making a note in his report. The other security officers shared his dismissive attitude. After all, what could the garbage-bringing humans possibly be doing that would concern an advanced galactic civilization? Inside the cargo bay, the truth was far more remarkable than any alien could have imagined. Dr. Webb stood before a complex holographic display, his fingers dancing through three-dimensional molecular structures that rotated and shifted in response to his touch. Around him, the human team worked with tools and techniques that seemed impossible for such a supposedly primitive species. "The carbon lattice is stabilizing beautifully," reported Dr. Elena Vasquez, the team's materials specialist. She held up what looked like a piece of ordinary plastic bottle, but under her scanner's analysis, it revealed a crystalline structure more perfect than anything the Galactic Consortium had ever achieved. "The metamorphic processing is converting the waste polymers into carbon nanotube weaves with tensile strength exceeding anything in their databases." Captain Chen watched in amazement as her team transformed refuse into materials that defied conventional understanding. "How is this possible, Marcus? Yesterday this was literally garbage." Dr. Webb smiled, his eyes never leaving his displays. "Because, Sarah, the aliens made the same mistake that plagued Earth for centuries. They see waste as an end product, something to be discarded or disposed of. They never learned to see it as a beginning." He gestured to a containment unit where food scraps were being broken down at the molecular level. "Every piece of organic waste contains the same building blocks that make up the most exotic materials in the universe: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. These aren't waste products, they're the fundamental components of creation itself. The aliens mine rare elements from asteroids and gas giants, spending enormous resources to find what we throw away every day." Dr. James Park, the team's engineer, looked up from a device that was systematically sorting waste at the atomic level. "The real breakthrough was understanding that Earth's waste isn't random garbage. It's a perfectly preserved sample of our planet's biosphere. Every discarded item contains information, molecular structures, and energy potential that can be harvested and redirected." As if to demonstrate his point, he fed a handful of food scraps into his machine. The device hummed softly, its internal mechanisms visible through transparent walls. The organic matter was systematically disassembled, its component molecules sorted and catalogued, then reassembled into a small cube of material that gleamed like polished metal, but was lighter than air. "Enhanced aerogel composite," Dr. Park announced proudly, "stronger than their best hull plating, but with the thermal properties of vacuum itself, made entirely from yesterday's lunch." The work continued around the clock, with the human team taking turns sleeping in shifts. They had brought more than just refuse to the station. Hidden among the garbage were sophisticated manufacturing devices, molecular assemblers, and energy conversion systems that represented the pinnacle of human scientific achievement. These machines, disguised to look like waste processing equipment, were actually the most advanced technology Earth had ever produced. "Status report," Captain Chen requested on the morning of the 7th day. Dr. Vasquez consulted her tablet, which now displayed construction progress rather than waste analysis. "Primary structural framework is 68% complete. We've successfully converted approximately 90% of the organic waste into building materials. The metals reclamation process exceeded all projections. We actually have surplus materials. Energy collection and storage?" "That's the beautiful part," Dr. Webb interjected, practically glowing with excitement. "The decomposition process doesn't just give us materials. It releases massive amounts of energy that we're capturing and storing. Every piece of waste is essentially a battery that's been waiting to be unlocked. We now have enough stored energy to power a small city for months." Outside the cargo bay, life on the station continued normally. The alien delegates had settled into a comfortable routine of mockery, occasionally stopping by the human section to peer through the walls and share jokes about whatever pathetic attempts the humans were making. They saw lights and movement, but dismissed it as desperate, busy work. "Look at them scurrying around like insects," laughed Ambassador Zethkar during one such visit, his mandibles clicking with amusement. "They actually think they can accomplish something meaningful with their refuse. It's almost sad, really." High Trader Velnix coiled beside him, her serpentine form relaxed and confident. "I've been taking bets on when they'll give up. The current favorite is day 10, when they realize they've wasted a full week on an impossible task." What they couldn't see, hidden behind energy screens and holographic camouflage, was the growing structure that had begun to take shape inside the cargo bay. It started small, no larger than a desk, but it grew steadily as the humans fed it materials converted from their waste. The structure was unlike anything in Galactic Consortium databases, a complex lattice of exotic materials that seemed to bend space-time around itself. "The field generators are online," reported Dr. Park, monitoring a series of displays that showed energy flows and spatial distortions. "We're achieving stable microgravitational manipulation. The framework is actually becoming self-sustaining." Dr. Webb nodded, making adjustments to the holographic controls. "Excellent. Begin Phase 2 integration. It's time to start connecting the collection arrays." As he spoke, thin tendrils of exotic matter began extending from the central structure, reaching toward the station's walls. The tendrils moved with purpose, seeming to taste and analyze everything they touched. Where they made contact, the ordinary materials of the station began to change, their molecular structure shifting and adapting. "Energy absorption is increasing exponentially," Dr. Vasquez reported, her voice filled with wonder. "It's not just collecting ambient energy from the station's power systems. It's extracting energy from the vacuum itself, from the quantum fluctuations in space-time." Captain Chen watched the readings climb on her displays, the numbers representing energy output that dwarfed anything in human experience. "Are we sure this is safe?" "Define safe," Dr. Webb replied with a grin. "What we're building has never been attempted before, but the theoretical models are sound. We're essentially creating a controlled singularity that feeds on waste matter and converts it into usable energy and materials. The more waste we feed it, the more powerful it becomes." By the 10th day, subtle changes had begun to manifest throughout the station, though the aliens remained oblivious to their significance. Lights burned slightly brighter, computers processed data marginally faster, and the environmental systems operated with unusual efficiency. The tendrils from the human construction had spread throughout the station's infrastructure, but they remained invisible to conventional scanners, existing in dimensions that Galactic Consortium science hadn't learned to detect. "They're still in there," observed Security Chief Vaxuol during his evening rounds, noting the continuing activity in the human cargo bay. "Whatever they're doing, they're certainly persistent. I'll give them that much." "Probably trying to clean up their mess before they leave," suggested his deputy, a young Klaxon who found the whole situation amusing. Can you imagine having to transport all that garbage back to their homeworld? Talk about embarrassing. Inside the cargo bay, the human team was putting the finishing touches on something that would change the course of galactic history. The structure had grown to fill nearly the entire space, its exotic matter framework pulsing with contained energy that registered as small fluctuations in the station's power grid. "Final systems check," Captain Chen announced, her voice tight with anticipation. "Structural integrity at maximum," Dr. Park reported. "Energy collection and conversion operating at theoretical limits," added Dr. Vasquez. "Spatial manipulation field stable and responsive," confirmed Dr. Webb. Captain Chen took a deep breath, her hand hovering over the activation control. "Gentlemen, ladies, are we ready to show the galaxy what human refuse can really do?" The team exchanged glances, their faces reflecting a mixture of excitement, determination, and barely contained awe at what they had accomplished. "Initiate primary activation sequence," Captain Chen commanded. Dr. Webb pressed the final control, and reality itself seemed to hold its breath as the machine they had built from garbage began to wake up. Energy cascaded through the exotic matter framework, space-time rippled like disturbed water, and throughout the station, every sensor and scanner suddenly registered readings that shouldn't have been possible. In the command center, alarm klaxons began to wail as system after system detected anomalies that exceeded all known parameters. The duty officer, a nervous ethereal named Wisp, frantically tried to identify the source of the disturbances, his gaseous form flickering with panic. "Energy spike detected in Section 7, he reported to no one in particular, his voice a whispered rush of compressed gases. "No, wait. It's Sections 7 through 12. Actually, it appears to be the entire station. This can't be right." As the activation sequence continued, the structure in the human cargo bay began to unfold in ways that defied three-dimensional understanding. What had appeared to be a simple framework revealed itself as something far more complex, its true shape extending into higher dimensions that human science had only recently learned to manipulate. The time for hiding was over. Tomorrow, the aliens would discover what Earth's refuse could really become. The 13th day began like any other aboard Trade Station Omega-7, but it would end with the fundamental understanding of the universe forever changed. Station Commander Thexanol, a dignified member of the administrative caste, was reviewing routine reports when every alert system on the station activated simultaneously. "Commander," squeaked Communications Officer Pip, his klaxon features trembling with alarm. "We're detecting massive energy readings throughout the station. The computers can't identify the source, but the power levels are—" "They're impossible, sir." Commander Thexanol's four arms moved efficiently across his control panels, calling up diagnostic displays that made no sense whatsoever. "Have you contacted the engineering division?" "They're as confused as we are," Pip replied, his voice rising in pitch. "Chief Engineer Voxtar says the readings indicate someone has connected a star's core to our power grid, but that's clearly impossible." "Get me Security Chief Vax, you all," the commander ordered, his calm demeanor beginning to crack. "And send someone to check on the humans. If they're somehow responsible for this—" He didn't finish the sentence because at that moment, reality flickered. Throughout the station, beings of a dozen species stopped what they were doing as space itself seemed to ripple around them. Gravity fluctuated, causing objects to briefly float before settling back down. The lights dimmed, then blazed brighter than ever before, and in the distance, a sound unlike anything heard in the galaxy began to emerge from the direction of the human cargo bay. It was a deep, thrumming harmonic that seemed to resonate through the very structure of matter itself. Those sensitive to electromagnetic fields felt it as a tingling in their extremities. Energy beings reported strange sensations as their forms vibrated in harmony with the mysterious frequency. Even the solid rock people of Granite Prime felt something they had never experienced before. a sensation they could only describe as their molecules singing. Ambassador Zethkar was in the middle of composing a mocking report about the humans when his quarters suddenly filled with a brilliant, impossible light. The light had no source that he could detect, yet it illuminated everything with perfect clarity, while somehow remaining gentle on his compound eyes. "What in the seven hells?" he muttered, rising from his desk and activating his emergency communicator. "Command Center, report. What is the cause of these anomalies?" But before anyone could respond, the wall of his quarters became transparent. Not invisible, transparent. He could see through the metal and composite materials as if they were made of clear crystal, revealing the internal structure of the station in perfect detail. And there, in the center of his field of vision, was something that made his mandibles click uncontrollably with shock. The human cargo bay was gone. In its place was a structure that extended far beyond the physical boundaries of the station, reaching into dimensions that shouldn't exist. It pulsed with controlled energy patterns that resembled a living heartbeat, and from its core, waves of force rippled outward through space-time itself. "Impossible," Zethkar whispered, but even as he spoke, he knew he was witnessing something that redefined the very concept of possibility. Throughout the station, similar revelations were unfolding. High Trader Velnix watched in stunned silence as her serpentine form began to glow with residual energy from the human construction. The light revealed cellular structures within her body that she had never seen before, showing her the beauty of her own existence in ways she hadn't imagined possible. Chancellor Thex of the military caste found his combat-hardened mind struggling to process what his sensors were telling him. According to his instruments, the human device was somehow converting the fundamental forces of the universe into usable materials and energy. It was taking the cosmic background radiation, the quantum vacuum fluctuations, the very fabric of space-time itself, and turning it into something that could be harvested and utilized. "It's a Dyson sphere," whispered Dr. Grixtel, the station's chief scientist, his crystalline form chiming with amazement as he studied the readings. "But not around a star. They've built a Dyson sphere around the quantum vacuum itself. They're harvesting energy from the foundation of reality." In the human cargo bay, or what had once been the human cargo bay, Captain Chen stood before a control interface that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that human science was still learning to navigate. Around her, her team monitored displays that showed energy collection rates climbing beyond any scale they had previously imagined. "Output efficiency is at 300% and climbing," Dr. Vasquez reported, her voice filled with awe. "We're not just collecting energy. We're creating it through controlled manipulation of quantum fields." Dr. Webb studied the readings with the intensity of a man witnessing the birth of a new universe. "The waste-to-energy conversion ratio is exceeding all theoretical limits. Every piece of garbage we fed into the system has become a node in the collection matrix. We're essentially running a controlled Big Bang in reverse, converting chaos back into usable order." "And the material synthesis?" Captain Chen asked. "Beyond incredible," Dr. Park replied, gesturing to displays that showed exotic matter being created at the molecular level. "We can now produce any element on the periodic table, plus several that don't exist naturally anywhere in the universe. The station's waste recycling systems are feeding directly into our construction matrix. We're turning their garbage into materials stronger than neutronium." Captain Chen activated the station's general communication system, her voice carrying to every corner of Omega-7 and beyond. Transmitted through quantum entanglement to monitoring stations throughout Galactic Consortium space. "Attention all delegates and station personnel," she began, her calm tone contrasting sharply with the chaos of alarm signals echoing through the corridors. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Delegation. We would like to formally present the completed evaluation of our trade materials. Throughout the station, beings of every species stopped what they were doing to listen. In the command center, the emergency klaxons fell silent as Commander Thexnall authorized the broadcast to continue. 14 days ago, you laughed at our offering of refuse, Captain Chen continued. You dismissed our materials as worthless garbage, unfit for civilized trade. We respectfully disagreed with your assessment. The structure around her pulsed with increasing intensity, and throughout the galaxy, monitoring stations began detecting energy signatures that registered as impossible on their instruments. What you see as waste, we see as potential. What you discard as worthless, we recognize as the fundamental building blocks of creation itself. Every piece of refuse contains the same atoms that make up stars, planets, and life itself. The difference is not in the materials. The difference is in understanding how to unlock their potential. Ambassador Zethkar found himself drawn toward the viewing galleries that overlooked the human section, along with dozens of other delegates who moved as if in a trance. When they arrived, they discovered that the walls had become completely transparent, revealing the impossible structure that the humans had built. It was beautiful beyond description. The framework of exotic matter created patterns that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, forming geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly, yet drew the eye with magnetic fascination. Energy flowed through the structure in rivers of light that followed paths through space-time that conventional physics insisted couldn't exist. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all classifications, Captain Chen's voice continued, we present Earth's contribution to galactic civilization, a Class 7 quantum vacuum energy harvesting system constructed entirely from waste materials. Current output, equivalent to a small star. Projected maximum output, sufficient to power the entire galactic consortium with energy to spare. The silence that followed was more profound than any sound. Across the station, beings who had spent millennia mastering the most advanced technologies in known space stood frozen in shock, their minds struggling to process the implications of what they were witnessing. The system is completely sustainable, Dr. Webb's voice added to the broadcast. It requires no exotic fuel, no rare elements, no complex maintenance. It feeds on waste matter, any waste matter, and converts it into usable energy and materials through controlled manipulation of quantum fields. The more waste you feed it, the more powerful it becomes. High Trader Velnix was the first to find her voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. How is this possible? Our best scientists have theorized about quantum vacuum energy harvesting for millennia, but the energy requirements to initiate the process exceed the output potential. It's a fundamental impossibility. Captain Chen smiled, though none of the aliens could see her expression through the energy field surrounding the control interface. You're absolutely correct. It is impossible, using conventional approaches. But you made an assumption that limited your thinking. You assumed the energy had to come from an external source. She gestured to the waste processing systems that continued to feed materials into the structure. We realized that the energy was already there, locked away in the molecular bonds of waste matter. Every piece of garbage contains tremendous potential energy in its chemical bonds, its molecular structure, its very existence. We simply learned how to extract that energy and use it to bootstrap the quantum field manipulation process. Dr. Vasquez took over the explanation, her voice filled with scientific enthusiasm. The organic waste provides biomolecular energy through controlled decomposition. The plastic waste contributes polymer chains that can be unraveled at the molecular level to release binding energy. Even the simplest food scraps contain complex molecules that, when properly processed, yield enough energy to power the initial field generators. Once the quantum vacuum interface is established, Dr. Park continued, the system becomes self-sustaining and begins producing exponentially increasing amounts of energy. What started as a small device powered by banana peels and bottle caps has become a structure capable of manipulating the fundamental forces of reality. Chancellor Thex, his massive frame trembling with emotions he had never experienced, stepped forward from the crowd of stunned delegates. This is beyond anything in our databases. You've achieved in 14 days what our greatest minds have failed to accomplish in millennia of research. Actually, Captain Chen replied, we've been working on this for decades. Earth's waste crisis forced us to think differently about materials science. When you can't simply throw things away, you learn to see every discarded item as a resource waiting to be unlocked. Our planet's pollution problem became the catalyst for our greatest scientific breakthrough. The structure pulsed again. And throughout the station, systems began operating with impossible efficiency. Lights that had burned with nuclear fusion now blazed with the clean fire of quantum vacuum energy. Computers that had processed information at light speed now operated in quantum superposition, calculating millions of scenarios simultaneously. Environmental systems that had recycled air and water through complex mechanical processes now rearranged matter at the atomic level, creating perfect atmospheric conditions from pure energy. The implications, whispered Ambassador Gorth, his 6 eyes blinking rapidly as he tried to process what he was witnessing, are staggering. Energy scarcity becomes meaningless. Resource limitations disappear. Waste becomes more valuable than the rarest elements in the universe. Precisely, Captain Chen confirmed. Which brings us to our revised trade proposal. Earth offers to share this technology with the Galactic Consortium in exchange for full membership and voting rights in the Trade Council. Additionally, we propose to establish quantum vacuum energy harvesting stations throughout Consortium space, powered by the waste products of member civilizations. The silence stretched on as the assembled delegates struggled to comprehend the complete reversal of everything they thought they knew. The species they had mocked as primitive garbage bearers had just demonstrated technology that made their most advanced systems look like stone tools. There is, however, one condition, Captain Chen added, her voice taking on a slightly sharper edge. Earth retains exclusive manufacturing rights for the core quantum field manipulation technology. We will build and maintain the systems, but we will not share the fundamental principles with species that refer to our offerings as worthless refuse. Ambassador Zethkar felt his mandibles clicking uncontrollably as the full weight of the situation crashed down upon him. The humans hadn't just proven their worth, they had demonstrated such overwhelming technological superiority that the entire power structure of the galaxy had shifted in the span of a single broadcast. He began, then stopped, his translator struggling with the mix of awe, fear, and desperate hope in his voice. We formally apologize for our previous misunderstanding of your material's potential. Earth's application for consortium membership is hereby approved with full honors. The Trade Council will convene immediately to discuss the terms of our partnership. Captain Chen's laughter rang through the communication system, carrying with it the sound of a species that had turned mockery into triumph. We look forward to productive negotiations. Oh, and Ambassador Zethkar, you might want to start collecting your own garbage more carefully. You never know what potential you might be throwing away. As the broadcast ended and the immediate crisis shifted toward frantic diplomatic negotiations, the human construction continued to grow, its tendrils of exotic matter reaching deeper into the quantum foundations of reality. What had begun as a pile of refuse had become something that would reshape the destiny of countless civilizations. And in the depths of space, monitoring stations across the galaxy detected something unprecedented. The energy signature of Earth's quantum vacuum harvester was growing stronger, not weaker, as if the system was somehow learning to become more efficient with each passing moment. The age of scarcity was ending. The age of Earth had begun.